What a fantastic night of fights. That card was absolutely insane. One of the best cards of all time. And a perfect example as to why boxing is dying a slow, painful death. Let's get right into the breakdown. Starting off with the main event, we have Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. I did not think this fight was going to end that quickly. I thought it was going to be a crazy fun fight, but Alex Pereira showed why he is the two-time Glory World Champion and the two-time UFC World Champion. He has an insane amount of power, and Jamahal was doing pretty good, to be honest. He was landing a lot of low kick, threw one up high, was looking pretty good at the feet up until he got knocked out after that low blow, and Alex shrugged it off like a Chad, to be honest. I'm a fan of both guys, so I wasn't too upset with this, but yeah, definitely a very impressive performance from Alex Pereira. And after those longer fights, it's nice to get a finish in one of those 5-round fights. But I am glad it went this way, because now there's a good possibility we'll get a Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka fight, which would be an absolutely insane fight to make. And Pereira will probably fight Magomed Ankalaev, which will also be a pretty crazy fight. And it'll test Alex's ground game, and yeah, that'll be a very interesting fight. Next up, we have Zhang versus Yan Xaonan. Yan came out of that first round absolutely accurate as hell. She was landing a lot of straight punches. She dropped Weili a bunch of times, but Weili choked her unconscious at the end of the first round. And the fact that that fight continued is absolutely insane. That felt really weird to watch, and the ref was giving the corner the okay to wake her up in between rounds, which is crazy. But Yan Xaonan, if she works on her ground game and improves a little bit on there, she is definitely world champion material. I was extremely impressed by her striking, especially against a well-rounded fighter like Zhang. But that was an insane WMA fight. That was much better than I thought it was going to be. Much more closer fight than I thought it was going to be as well. Not to mention the translator. Oh my god, she is a baddie. That was all I was seeing in most of those live chats. We're talking about that translator. Definitely need to see her more often. Then we had the next fight. My personal favorite fight on the card was Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. That was an absolutely insane fight. Max Holloway got dropped for the first time. He did land 2 eye pokes, which is pretty rough. Gaethje is an absolute savage. He has proved to everybody why he's the BMF. He was taking eye pokes, shrugging it off, got his nose destroyed. Didn't seem to care at all. Absolutely legendary moment in the last 10 seconds. Max pointed down to the ground. Gaethje accepted. They started swinging for the fences. And Max Holloway got a beautiful 1-second knockout. Or last second knockout, I should say. Yeah, that was insane. Extremely impressive performance for Max. He had the range down. He had the timing down. Very good footwork, very good head movement. Not to mention, his leg was swollen, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. Max's calves are insane. They're almost as big as his thighs are, which is crazy weird. Both guys are BMFs in my opinion. I hope that Dana White gave Justin Gaethje a $300,000 bonus as well, because, like I said, that was the best card on the fight by far. And without it, this fight card would have definitely under-delivered. But just the BMF belt alone made this fight card worth the $80 in my opinion. And it made pretty much everybody excited to see an Islam Makhachev versus Holloway fight. And Ilia Topuria looked scared when Max called him out. That camera pan did him no favors. He was straight-faced. He had a frown on his face. He wasn't that cocky. Oh yeah, come on, bring it on, let's do this. Like he did with the Volkanovski fight, like he did with all of his other fights. When Max Holloway called him out, that boy was shaking. And I see why, because Max Holloway, if he shows up the way he did, Max Holloway would destroy Ilia Topuria in a stand-up fight. Max Holloway is not an easy guy to take down, which is why that Islam Makhachev fight would be crazy. The next fight on the card, we have Brundage versus Tsarukyan. I got this pick correct, however, it was a much more closer fight. Oliveira had 2 submissions that were extremely deep. Arman got saved by the bell for sure, however, he showed why people are so impressed by his grappling. He is a very strong top game, very intelligent top game as well. Landed a lot of really big elbows, had Oliveira hurt. And I think the judges got this one right. Bronx was definitely the much more damaged fighter. He was at bottom for most of the fight, which is not a great look, especially when you're eating elbows and you're just doing underhooks to hold him there. But very high level grappling, very high fight IQ from both fighters. And if you're into grappling, that was an entertaining fight. Next up, we have Nickal versus Cody Brundage. This was honestly one of the more boring fights. However, it was nice to see Nickal get tested, especially with the cardio. Bo got the rear naked choke at the end of round 2. Cody was mocking him. Bo was landing these little short hooks that were doing absolutely zero damage, but they still get added to the scorecard regardless, so I understand why he was doing it. Cody Brundage also had a very high defensive IQ. Every time Bo would be in a dominant position, he would trap one of his arms, if not both of his arms, and it was really annoying Bo. And if Bo was in a 5-rounder, I'm not sure how that cardio would hold up at all, to be honest. I think that Bo would have gassed out if it went much longer. So he definitely has a lot of things to work on, but he's still 5 or 6-0, so he's still very green. But still has a ton of potential, especially if he can improve his boxing and his jiu-jitsu. He could definitely be a real problem. He also called out Fluffy Hernandez, which is a crazy call out. Probably not the smartest call out. Fluffy Hernandez is a very tough fighter, a very underrated fighter if you're not a hardcore fan. And that's the fight they should make, to be honest. Next up, we have the big boys scrapping. Prochazka versus Rakic. Rakic was looking very big in that fight. So was Jiri. They were both landing bombs on each other. Rakic was eating up Yuri's leg bad. But Jiri ended up blitzing him, throwing a lot of crazy stuff. Got the knockout. Or the TKO, not the knockout. But yeah. Plus, it's nice to see both guys showing a lot of respect at the end after all that trash talk. And you just gotta love seeing two dogs just go at it. People acting like Rakic is done and he is on his way out of the sport, which is insane. Rakic was winning that fight up until he got knocked out. But yeah, these guys were throwing down, landing bombs on each other. Rakic was landing a lot of kicks. He landed a couple really good straights as well. But Jiri, he just has a crazy amount of pressure that he puts on guys. Yeah, that fight was absolutely insane. And the fight to make 100% is Jiri versus Hill. That would be a hardcore fan's wet dream, to be honest. That would be an absolutely phenomenal fight to make. Next up, we have another very boring fight. Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. Aljamain Sterling was extremely heavy-handed on the grappling side of things. However, we did see a pretty sweet takedown with the power bomb. Dumped Calvin Kattar on his head. Very rarely see in MMA. Yeah, very impressive performance from Aljo. Dealt with Calvin Kattar's boxing very well. Calvin Kattar was very hesitant on the feet due to Aljamain's grappling, especially the longer the fight went on. But yeah, very impressive performance from Aljo. Just wish it was a little bit more entertaining to watch. Next up, we have another dominant performance from Kayla Harrison versus Holm. Not sure why Holm decided to clinch with her immediately. That was the worst game plan I have ever seen. But Harrison got the job done, got the rear naked choke in round 2. Holm showed a lot of heart and a lot of toughness, especially being 40 years old. And I think that she should retire, to be honest. She's already in the Hall of Fame, and yeah, in the Boxing Hall of Fame. She doesn't have much else to prove. This was definitely a layup fight for Kayla Harrison. Next up, we have an insane fight as well. We have Yussuf versus Lopes. Extremely impressive performance from Lopes, especially being predominantly a grappler. He had a sweet knockout over Sadiq Yussuf, which is no walk in the park. And yeah, I definitely suggest looking at Sadiq's YouTube channel. He has a lot of very informative breakdowns. Very humble guy as well. Both guys are pretty humble, but yeah, Lopes showed why he's a fan favorite going into this fight. Next up, we have another entertaining fight. We have Jalen Turner versus Renato Money Moicano. Give Moicano his citizenship already. The guy just loves America. He wants to be a cop. He wants to have a lot of guns. Yeah, Moicano got dropped really bad in that first round. Jalen Turner tried to force a walk-off KO, which is the worst idea. Sean O'Malley tried to do that a few years back, and everybody was making fun of him for it. Rightfully so. People are making fun of Turner for trying to force it, especially after taking a loss. Jalen Turner really needs to move up in weight, because Jalen Turner gets on his back. He is a fish out of water. It is atrocious to watch. Jalen Turner just kind of gave up when Renato Moicano got full mount and started landing ground and pound, and once he started, it just was not stopping. So very impressive performance from Money Moicano. It went honestly the way I thought it was going to go. Renato Moicano is very good at grappling, very good at takedowns, and he showed why he's been ranked for a very long time. Next up, you have a pretty fun fight. Andrade versus Rodrigues. Rodrigues was looking very crisp on the feet, throwing a lot of straight punches, a lot of jabs. But them straights were money all night. She was landing them clean, consistently, but Jessica Andrade has a very good chin, and she's a dog. And Andrade had a lot of very good trips, a lot of very good takedowns as well. She mixed it up much better than Rodrigues did. She had Rodrigues on the back foot for the majority of the fight, and she got dropped with a leg kick, which is pretty insane. Yeah, Andrade won the split decision, rightfully so. I think she definitely edged it, especially in that third round and that first round. But yeah, that was a pretty fun fight as well. Next up, you have Bobby Green versus Jim fucking Miller. Bobby Green looked phenomenal. Jim Miller was getting tagged up the entire fight. But that was an extremely fun fight as well. Jim Miller, especially in the first 2 rounds, he was landing some good shots, had Bobby Green wobbling in there. But Bobby Green is a game fighter. He's just trying to put on a show, trying to get that sweet highlight reel. It was like watching 2 boomers go at it, but high-level boomers. Bobby Green really beat the shit out of Jim Miller. Not to mention, the end of that fight was crazy. Both guys had a legendary moment where they just decided to sit down, bite down on the mouthpiece, and swing for the fences. The last like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Jim Miller is tough. His face looked battered, bruised, and he was getting beat up bad. But that was a hell of a fight to watch. Extremely fun to watch. And yeah, I hope the UFC paid both of these guys pretty well this night, because that was a crazy fun fight. First fight on the card, we have Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody No Love Garbrandt. Cody looked very good in there up until he lost. He was landing very clean in the pocket, landing a lot of good kicks, a lot of good combinations to the body going up top. I thought Cody No Love was going to honestly win this fight, but it was a toss-up. Deiveson Figueiredo is a very powerful puncher, and Cody No Love had a questionable chin, but nobody got knocked out, nobody took a ton of damage. Deiveson Figueiredo got the rear naked choke 4 minutes and 2 seconds into round 2. And Deiveson Figueiredo called out Sean O'Malley, which would be a crazy fun fight to watch as well, especially considering how durable Deiveson Figueiredo is. And Deiveson Figueiredo can grapple, he can strike, he can do a lot of things very, very well. But I think Sean O'Malley would honestly knock out Deiveson Figueiredo. But yeah, that wraps up all the fights on the card. Extremely fun card to watch. As I said in the beginning of the video, this is one of the best cards in UFC history, if not the best card in UFC history. I'd have to go back and look at the other cards, to be honest. There's a lot of them. There's over 600 of them, so wouldn't be surprised if it's the second or the third best card of all time, but it was well worth your $80. Extremely impressive fights from top to bottom. And if you weren't satisfied with this fight card, then you're just not an MMA fan, to be honest. This card was insane. My favorite fights were for sure Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. That was a crazy fun fight. And my second favorite fight of the night was 100% Prochazka versus Rakic. That was a crazy fun fight to watch. The big boys were throwing heavy bombs. Both guys were chasing that finish the entire fight. Both guys got hurt pretty bad in that fight as well, so definitely a legendary card. Saw Max Holloway get dropped for the first time. We saw Jamahal Hill get knocked out for the first time. But yeah, what was your guys' favorite fight on the card? And do you think that it lived up to the hype? If you guys watched the video this far, I assume you guys like the channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. I hope you guys have a great week and have a good week off from fights.